Hello. I could eat about 1.5 million of these.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Welcome to the It's a Drama podcast.
Daddy, I love him.
My mother thanks you.
If you can't say something nice.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello and welcome to the It's a Drama podcast. I'm Liz and today I am so excited about this. I have got a guest, not just any guest, an American guest, and not just any American guest, Tara Hulbert, who is just this amazing YouTube star in my eyes. Tara moved to New Zealand with her family. She's got 4 kids, so there was 6 of them, and they moved to New Zealand from America about 4 years ago. And I found Tara through her TikTok channel. She's just this TikTok star. My daughter would be so impressed. And now she's gone on to do these amazing YouTube videos, mostly about New Zealand. That's how I found her. She just tells you about her life in New Zealand. You're going to go and check her out. She's absolutely fantastic. And in this episode, we just chatted about Tara's transition with her family from America to New Zealand. Oh, I just loved it. She told me all about, the differences, the culture differences, what she missed, what she wasn't expecting. You are going to absolutely love this episode. And remember, I'm going to give you, at the end of the episode, we're going to talk about where you can find Tara because you have got to check this woman out. She's fantastic. So I'll give you all the details at the end of the show about where you can go and find her videos. But until then, sit back and enjoy the interview with Tara Hulbert from Kiwi Americans. Hello and welcome, Tara. I am so excited to have a real life American on my podcast. Tara, would you like to introduce yourself and just say who you are and where you're from?
Yes. Hi, Liz. Thanks so much for having me on here. I am very excited to be here. And yeah, I am currently living in Wellington, New Zealand. We are a family of 6 who have lived here for about, going on 5 years now. But it's a little bit odd because we were here for 2 years. We went back to the States for 2 years and then we were back. So
right.
It brings a whole different perspective, really. When you've come here, you've gone back and you've come again.
So you came here the first time and then went back and then decided we loved it so much and then you're going to come back to move permanently. Was that it?
No, it wasn't quite that cut and dry. But because obviously we moved back to the States with no intention of coming back because that's just crazy. Like, we're not crazy people moving our kids everywhere. But we went back and it was the reintegration back into the U.S. was very difficult. And and then opportunities presented itself that we kind of couldn't. And we just kind of were forced to make that decision of, do we want to raise our family in the U.S.? Do we want to raise our family in New Zealand? Now that we really, truly know the difference, right?
Yeah.
And so
let me just get it straight. You came to New Zealand from America. Whereabouts in America did you come from?
Yeah, so I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So top middle, right in the middle, just north of Chicago.
Right, okay. And why did you come to New Zealand the first time? That first time that you came for 2 years, why did you come?
Good question. So it's kind of a funny story. Basically, we were traveling a lot around the U.S. and we had decided that we were going to say, let's pull our kids out of school, let's homeschool them for a year, and we're going to, get a camper van and travel around the U.S. and do all the U.S. history and all that kind of stuff. So we were driving back from a trip in Florida and we were talking about this and we're like, you know what, we've been everywhere. We've been to almost every place in the U.S. And then I was like, and it wasn't sounding too exciting, but we were literally shopping for camper vans. And then my husband goes, well, what about if we go internationally? He says, what about New Zealand? And I said to him, and this true response is I said, it's like a black hole. I don't know anything about New Zealand, not one thing. What are you talking about, New Zealand? As Americans, you're very familiar with Australia. Yeah. Australia is the coolest place on earth from an American perspective, but nothing on New Zealand. And so we were on a 13-hour car ride. He's like, why don't you Google it? We're just driving in the car. And so I spent many hours Googling it and could not find one person that's saying anything negative about this place. And I was like, what is this place? And so that just kind of started the journey. And we decided that what a great opportunity to give our kids. Like we came originally with, we wanted to be here for 2 years and give our kids like an international experience. And that's what we kind of set out to do. And then, honestly, just didn't expect to love it so much.
So what year was that?
That was 2013 to 2015 we were here.
2013 to 2015. So I've got a couple of questions. A, how old were your kids in 2013?
Okay, so when we first moved here, I did think of that ahead of time. My youngest was 2, 5, 9, and 11. Yes. Two in a camper, 4 kids in a camper van going around America. Are you mad? Well, the thing is when you have 4 kids, you have 4 kids, nobody else wants them. So if I want to do something, I got to take them with me, right? So yeah, but it was hard because my husband moved here a month ahead of us. And so we had to fly by ourselves and pack up everything, and it was hard. But
so was he like the main driver of the one in the family that was like, we want to go to New Zealand? Yes, I know you think it's a black hole, Tara, but I really want to go to New Zealand. Was he the main driver?
That's a good question. At first, it was more like, even the children were really on board. Like, this would be a cool experience. We talked about all the different places we could go. We decided that if we were only going to go for 2 years, it would need to be English speaking because, I just felt like there was a limit to culture integration, really, and for the kids and their ages and that sort of thing. And so we started naming all of it. And yeah, I have a friend of mine who works in like an international business, and she said to me one day, I said, we're going to try to, move to New Zealand for 2 years. And, she's, into all of that stuff, and she knows all the different cultures, and she looks at me and she says, there's no way you're getting in New Zealand. It's a really hard country to get into.
Is that right? Yeah.
And from then, that was it. That sealed the deal for me. I took the challenge. I'm like, oh,
you
really?
Watch me.
I'm like, you watch me. I'm coming.
I can go around America with 4 kids in a camper van, love. I can get to New Zealand. So
no worries.
Yes, exactly. So what do you do for a job? How did you plan to work when you came over here for those 2 years?
Yeah, so the benefit of this whole idea of just traveling in general was that my husband is in IT. And so it's just the field to be able to kind of be anywhere in the world, really. And so when we did the whole visa process and everything, it was all around his work. I'm in education, and while there's more of a demand for educators now, there wasn't back then. Mm-hmm. And so, they got a lot of points for me, but I didn't.
Are you a teacher?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm I teach at the university level or tertiary level business and communication courses. Right. And so, so even when we met with when we came here, we met with people and saying, hey, is there a good job opportunity? They just kind of looked at me like,
Right.
It wasn't great. And so we were coming for 2 years. We were going to base everything on having enough money through my husband's job. Mm-hmm. And then if I end up working, that's bonus, but we weren't going to count on that. And just in terms of making our decision. It was quite a long process and hard. And she was right. It was very hard to get into New Zealand.
Right.
You have to be the right age. You have to have the right qualifications. You have, what's really cool what New Zealand does is that they're only bringing in people that are, that they need, skills that they need. They're only bringing in that would be useful to their economy.
Yeah.
And so I guess I agree with that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So how long did it take you to get in for that, for that first, to get over here for 2 years on a visa? How long did that take to go through?
It's a good question. I think it was 1.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less. And that was actually quick because you do your expression of interest, you get in a pool, and they could pick your name at any point. So you could be waiting like 6 months then, right? So then we ended up getting it pretty quickly, like in 2 months. And I think that's right. It was pretty quick. And then you can go through we did the skilled migrant visa, and that's a very long process. You have to do fingerprints, FBI, prove that you're, legit. You can't just say that you don't have
America in a camper van.
Yes, we are the crazy people. So we couldn't just say that we didn't have tuberculosis. We had to have proven all the X-rays, and we had to have pictures of our family happily over time.
Really?
Like
Is that
we
right?
weren't fake. Yeah, that we weren't a fake family, that we were actually married, that we were actually, it was interesting.
That is interesting, yeah.
It is, yeah. It was cool though. Like I can understand, like if you're gonna come and be in our society, like these are the things that we value. So
Right, yeah. Okay, so you're over here, you spend your 2 years here, and then your visa ran out and you had to go home, was that it? Or is that why you went back to America?
Good question. So the way that the skilled migrant visa works, and the reason why it's kind of like one of the best ones, is that when you come, you're like a citizen here. So you get all the benefits, you get the free healthcare, the education benefits, all of it. You can vote,
Yep.
but then all you have to do is live in the country for a consecutive 2 years, and then you can apply for permanent residency. And that's really just, once you've done, the skilled migrant visa is the hard part. And then once you've lived here for 2 years, you go in, we paid $150 and we filled out a piece of paper and we were permanent residents. And the reason why we wanted to do that was because we went through this whole process, we followed all the rules, we got to this point. If we ever wanted to come back, it gave us an option, right? And it also gave our children options to go to university here, which is way cheaper. And so that's why we did that.
Okay.
So yeah, we became permanent residents, which makes it look like we're not planning on leaving. I didn't want to leave actually after the 2 years, but then, we just wanted to have that benefit so our kids could come and live and work for the rest of their lives here.
Yeah.
As an option.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, what a journey you've had then. What a journey. So, I know this is not just a little bit off topic because I've never been to Wisconsin. What is it like compared to New Zealand? Because, I mean, I've been to places in America, but I haven't been there. What is it like?
Sure.
What sort of place is it?
Yes, that's a great question too, because it is very different. So you're not by the sea. So that's the biggest, it's so nice to be on the water. I love it. Not that you can't be on the water other places in the US, but we are by the Great Lakes. So, and they're huge. I mean, they look like the sea, but it's not the same. There's 4 seasons and a really heavy winter.
Right.
And so you can be really harsh winter from like even late November until, April, and really cold. One of the things that was really noticeable to me was that here in New Zealand, it's just green all year. Yeah. Whereas like in Wisconsin, you're living like 6 months of the year in the ugliest place you've ever seen. Snow, rain, sleet, nothing on the trees, just...
You're going to get hammered by Wisconsin people now. You realize that, don't you?
It's all right, bring it on. I think they would agree with me. They're about to walk into winter and they agree with me.
Yeah, so yeah, go on. So what? So, is there anything great about Wisconsin that you like?
Yeah. No. Okay. Yes. True. No, there is. The winters are rough. I mean, like literally every winter, I would go, "Why do I live here? Oh my goodness." And you're just like torturing yourself. A lot of people, when you retire, you go to Florida in the winter and that sort of thing. But, like, why am I living here? But but you have 4 very distinct seasons, which, you don't experience as much in New Zealand. So winter is really cold, and then spring is really nice, and then summer is great. Like the summers in the U.S. or in Wisconsin in particular are really great.
Yep.
And then fall is awesome. Like the leaves turn, it's so beautiful. You have pumpkins and apples and everybody's out to the orchards and it's really nice. So those are all really nice. It's American football season and it's so great. Yeah. So those are the things like we would miss, Thanksgiving and so.
Yeah.
Yeah, those winters, man.
Big shout out to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So when
I got my Wisconsin shirt on.
Yeah. So when you moved back, did you decide that was it? We're coming back, and did you say to the kids, that's it. We're emigrating to New Zealand. We're not coming back. And is that how it was when you moved back to New Zealand? Were you like in for it for good, or was it just another like, we'll give it 5 or 10 years or whatever?
When we came back the second time?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that we kind of live our life 1 year at a time. And we say,
we do too.
We definitely moved here with the intention to be more permanent. Yeah. But we don't just say that this is definitely what we're doing, because you never know,
No.
COVID hits and, things happen or you change. But so but we are settled for a while. We have no intention of leaving at this point. So.
Okay. And where do you live? Whereabouts in New Zealand do you live?
In New Zealand, we live in Wellington. We lived in Wellington the first time we moved as well. We love Wellington. So the first 2 years that we were here, we saw most of New Zealand. Like we traveled because we thought, this is it. This is the last time we're going to be here.
Yeah.
So we're like traveling like crazy, seeing everything. And we haven't seen everything, but we did a pretty good job. And so you got, real sense of the country and everything that it had to offer from the top all the way to the bottom. And we love Wellington. Wellington is...
Have you ever been to Taranaki?
I have.
Good.
And I do love it there too.
Girl.
Yes.
Yes. Not many people
Yeah.
have. You talk to them and they always do like the main Rotorua, Auckland, Wellington. And it's like,
Yes.
it's gorgeous, isn't it?
We've been everywhere. It is gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you guys have some of those like black sand beaches and it's great.
Yeah, but me and Brian have just done a weekend in Wellington. That's where we were last weekend. We're having a romantic breakaway. I know, it was lovely.
Awesome. I wish I would have known you then.
And I always think, whenever I go down there, it feels like such an arty. I love it down there. It feels so different to Auckland, doesn't it? Auckland feels very grown up and proper, and Wellington, you almost feel like you're a student when you go to Wellington. It's almost like you feel like, just really nice restaurants and lots of buskers and, I love Wellington. I do. I love it.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful on the harbor and everything is close and it's big, but it's small. And, I've tried to like Auckland. I just don't.
I know.
I just don't.
Yeah, I sort of don't
warmer.
get Auckland because it's like when you're in Auckland, you think, well, really, I could just be living in, London or another big city or something. It doesn't. You almost get that feeling that unless you're rich and you'll be able to live on the, on what's that place called on the bay there, North Shore, that's really.
Yes.
But otherwise you just otherwise you just feel as if you're just just in another big city, and to me that's what Auckland feels like. It's
right. I didn't move to New Zealand to live in another big city.
No. So, moving to New Zealand from America.
Yes, it was great.
So tell me, can you just tell me a few, let's say 5 things, or let's start, just what were the things that you really noticed that were different to the US and, that you had to come to terms with, or what you weren't expecting, or, just...
Yes. I get that question a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And again, America is a really big place. And so I always get kind of shot down also with like, well, it's not like that in California and it's not like that, it's a big place. I'm just sharing my experience from being, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But some of the main differences, I would say, are number one, the safety issues. Like, I've talked to a lot of people here and they're like, oh, it's not safe in West Auckland or whatever, and I'm like, okay, have your kids been through active shooter training? Okay.
Oh, God,
it's
really?
a different level of safety.
Yeah.
And the fact that
what's that?
you can't...
What's that all about?
The active shooter training?
What's that?
Yeah, so in the schools, all the students have that. So if someone comes in to shoot down your school, there's a process.
Listen up, all you people who love New Zealand and dream of moving here or even are planning to move here. 11 years ago, when we decided to emigrate to New Zealand, we'd put our papers in and everything, and then honestly, I spent months just scouring whatever I could and devouring any information on New Zealand that I could find. I was reading all the books, I was going on any websites I could find, and I was even listening to Kiwi radio just so we could get a feel of what it was like over here. And I vowed when we got over here, I'd make something for someone that just showed them what real life was really like in New Zealand. And that's what I've done for you. You're going to absolutely love this. I've created a free 5-day video guide all about moving to and living in New Zealand. Now, this guide is not your tourist guide, pretty picture-y hobbits things about New Zealand. This is nitty-gritty, what it's like to live in New Zealand, because do you know what? It's too far away. You can't come and see it for yourself. It's, you're taking a big risk. Maybe you've only been here once or twice. You want to know what it's like to live in New Zealand. And this video series is going to show you that. And best of all, it is absolutely free. Okay, you're going to love it. This is where you have to go. You can go to www.itsadrama.com/ILoveNZ. I'm going to say that again. It's www.itsadrama, so itsadrama.com/ILove, and then the 2 letters NZ. Go over there, put your email in, and I will send you 5 days of free, real life, what it's like to live in New Zealand. And I just know I'm so excited about it. You are going to love it. Let me know what you think. Okay.
Have your kids been through active shooter training? Okay.
Oh, God.
It's
really?
a different level of safety.
Yeah.
And the fact that
what's that?
you can't...
What's that all about? They go...
What, the active shooter training?
What's that?
Yeah, so in the schools, all the students have that. So if someone comes in to shoot down your school, there's a process. Oh. Yep. Yeah, it's a whole, like, it just shifts your mind, right? Like, you don't even think like that. So you're thinking that you could just send your kids to school and, some active shooter won't show up. But you know what? It happens a lot. It happens actually a lot. Like, you read about it, you hear about it in the news, but it's actually a lot more than you think. And so safety concerns, like, as a parent in the U.S., you can't take your eyeballs off of your kids.
No.
Ever.
No.
And so that's like exhausting. And so even when my American friends come here and the kids go running over to the park, I mean, they go into a panic because they've never, I've adjusted and it doesn't bother me anymore, but they're like, what do you mean? I can't see them because you live in a world where your kids can't just run around outside. They can't bike around. And, I'm sure some small towns you can, but in general, you just don't do that. They don't go on public transportation. They don't, and so here is so different. So here, it was like the most freedom I had felt as a mother and as a parent who's like staying home with the kids, where I could send them somewhere and not worry about it. They could run down and play in the bush and I didn't have to worry about it. And it was just, that was one of the most amazing things.
Did that come naturally to you though, or did you have to really like fight back the anxiety of, letting your kids go out to the bush and knowing that you weren't there?
Being that I had been a parent for 11 years at that point, I just let it go.
You just let it go, yeah.
Yeah, even I homeschooled my oldest that first year that I was here, and that was really nice. And it was great. And I ended up getting a job for a while, like under contract. And so I would work in the city and they would let me bring her. That's a whole nother story. But, and she would just be able to walk around downtown. She was able to take public transportation, and it was totally safe and totally normal. And once I had been here for a while, I was definitely comfortable with that. And that was just so, to her, it wasn't mind blowing, but to me it was. And so, because it's just exhausting. You have to drive your kids everywhere. You can't, they can't just do anything on their own. So there's also just a lot of learning that they're missing from you always doing everything for them like that. So, that was one of the biggest.
I remember when we first came over as well, and I'd put Tess and Sunny first started school when we first came over here, and she was 6 or 7 years old or something, and I'd put her in the primary school, and literally, like you say, went out for a coffee with a friend. She was American actually. We went out for a coffee with a friend, and it got to 3:10, and I was supposed to pick the kids up at 4:15, and I was like, my heart just started pounding, thinking I'm not going to be there to be at the gates for her. And she was like, no, just relax. They're just playing the monkey bars. They're just, they'll just play, and you don't have to be there. Yeah, and it was just like, what, because you get so, drilled into having to be there and having the teacher hand the kids over to you. They won't let them out of the classroom until they can see the parent standing there. And no, that's a good point. I forgot about that. That anxiety of getting to everywhere on time. But also my kids would feel that if they were going to be late for school, if they were going to be, they would just feel that. In certain personalities and certain of my children, it was worse for it. Created more anxiety. They just, and they're just so laid back, no worries, it's okay. And you just don't realize how great that is when you don't come from that. Yeah. When you just come from why are you late? Detention. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
because life happens.
Yeah.
Especially when it's on the parent to get the kid everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So safety number one. So
Safety
what else?
number one. Number
What
two,
else?
I would say work-life balance is so different. And this is what I talk about a lot with American friends when I go home. It's just, it's hard to describe. So like in the US, you get 2 weeks vacation. It varies, but not a lot of vacation. The point is that you're not encouraged to take it. So like you don't really get holiday. Your work is more important than everything. Right. That is the culture of the US. So even with my friends here, when they go to visit their sister or whatever in the US and she's not taking off work, they get kind of offended. Like, why wouldn't you take some days? I just traveled from New Zealand and, because, I got to work. And so that makes sense to them because work is number one, right? And you kind of have to give them everything. You have to give them all your time and your energy. You kind of feel like you have to give them your blood. It's just like they own you kind of thing. And so there's not a lot of balance. And so then like if you want to have kids or you want to have other interests, it's difficult. And so, so this is what makes it very difficult.
So is it like the employers that make it like that? Or is like, so when you go out for coffee with your friends, do you just like talk, is that the common thing in America that everyone talks about work? Or what, when you say there's no balance, is it?
Good question.
Yeah, does it?
Like when you go somewhere, the first question you get asked are, what do you do for a living?
Right.
When I live here, my closest friends, like one of my closest friends is like a surgeon and one's like a lawyer, and I had no idea after knowing them for a year and a half.
No, I agree.
And I never thought to ask them because that's just not the culture. That's not it. I wouldn't say it's employers. I would say it's a cultural thing in the U.S. That's just what's valued. That if I say, I have to work, all things are forgiven. It's okay that you don't make Thanksgiving if you have to work. Like it's just it's just the way that it is. Whereas in New Zealand, like you can work full-time or part-time and still get 4 weeks holiday. Like to us, that was like unheard of. Like when my husband, has always worked and like he would negotiate 3 weeks was a big deal, and like, because we wanted to have a different life as well, where and then when we went back to the US, he said, this is one area where I'm not gonna budge. I want this much holiday. I want the freedom to work without pay, even if I want to go and travel for a month, because people just don't do that in the US. People don't travel for a month. No. So when I tell them that I've gone away for 3 weeks, they don't understand that, because a week is really long to travel somewhere. So you just get balance. So there's the holiday side, but then it's also just the attitude. Like I've really struggled as an employee in New Zealand now that I work full time and have been for 3 years. Is it's so opposite in that you go on holiday and I said, well, I'm just gonna do these couple things when I'm on holiday. They're like, no, you can't work when you're on holiday. And to me that is really hard because I, to some level of my job is customer service, working with students, and it's like, but I want to give this level, so this is what I'm used to, this is how I'm trained to be, and you're not letting me do that. And okay. Okay, I'll get over it. So when I first started working, it was like, what do you mean I don't start work until 9 a.m.? That was like, that's unheard of. Like if you're showing up after 8 in the US, it's like, okay, lazy. Yeah. And so, and then like they're knocking on my door at 10, like, let's have morning tea. I'm like, take a break. We just started.
They love their morning tea, the Kiwis.
They do.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought when we came over from England, I mean, I know the kids have a break at school and things, but the adults stop and take morning tea. And I was like, what's that all about?
And it was an actual struggle for me. I'm like, I don't know, I'm good, because like I just want to do my work, then I can maybe leave early and get and go get the kids. Like I just come from a different mindset. Yeah. And they're like, no, we want you to take a break. We want you to walk around. We want you to use the exercise classes. And I'm like, you do? This is so weird.
Right.
Yeah. The word. Right. Yeah. Just the health and safety here is only exists in construction in the US, not in like every job. And so I was, wow, okay, I adjusted.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll take breaks. It's great. And so the reality of me being able to work full time would never happen as a mom of 4 in the US. I would not be able to work full time because it's not 40 hours, it's 60 hours, and it's not flexible, and you can't go and pick your kid up from school. And that was the reality. So here, I never even considered working full time until I came here and realized that it was different and that they're flexible and they could say, sure, you can leave at 3 and go get your kid and work a little bit at night. And like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I can bring my
bonus.
kid? What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Fantastic.
totally different.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And yes, I totally agree. Like, just that whole thing of when you meet up, it's almost like rude to say to someone, so what do? Unless you know them really well. I'd get that feeling that, well, there's no need to ask that. And whereas in the UK, that too is the first thing that you sort of say is like, oh, so what do you do for a living? Like, what do you do? But like over here, they'd just rather talk about the fishing and the wind, and in Taranaki, certainly. And, just how the rugger's doing, really.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Never mind
totally
what job
different.
I do. Right, go on then. Number 3, love. What is it?
Okay, I would say number 3. I can't not mention just the beauty of this place, and there's so many beautiful spots in the U.S. But the fact that you can travel to one location in 20 minutes and 30 minutes that looks totally different than where you're at is not possible in the U.S. And that is just I think, a huge benefit and a huge difference. So like if I'm living in Milwaukee and I want to go to the mountains, it's an 11-hour trip or a flight.
Yeah.
If and you can't do it all. Whereas here I can have mountains and the sea and the beach and this bush that's amazing, and and so I just can't not say that because it's just so noticeably different that from my house I can just go see a waterfall. It's a short ways away. I can and that's just so, I think that really helps with the work-life balance, that it doesn't have to be just the couple weeks that you take off a year. That you actually can just on the weekends I can go and be in farm country, and I can go over these beautiful rumatukas over here, and it's just great. And so I would say that
And we noticed that at the weekend because, like I say, we went to Wellington and we drove home to Taranaki via Masterton. And so, and like we went over those massive, big, gorgeous ranges. And I persuaded Brian, he was in a bit of a rush to get back because he doesn't like to stop along the way, but I persuaded him to go and visit the Lord of the Rings film set. What was it called? It was called Riverdale.
Rivendale.
Yeah.
That's not far from Wellington.
Yeah, and that's like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes outside. You're in the city centre, living it up in the cafes. And then 30 minutes later, you're in Hobbit country, aren't you?
Yes, exactly.
And that is
so
brilliant.
Great.
What's the most beautiful place you've ever been to in New Zealand?
Oh, gosh. I think the most shocking thing, it's hard to pick, honestly, but I think it's like the sounds, the Milford Sounds, these untouched regions is the most spectacular, because I can't think of a place in the U.S. that's really untouched other than desert. Places you don't want to go, but and then just the fact that I can go to beaches here and there's nobody on the beaches. Like in the States, they're packed, right? Any decent beach is packed and full of condo buildings everywhere, more of what you'd see in Australia. But here, if you got too many people at a beach, you just go to the next beach.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody, and it's you can have a beach to yourself. It's that's unheard of, and it's common.
Yeah.
And it's
I remember
so
when we
great.
first came over here, Tara, and it was a Sunday, and we'd been here, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And I said to Brian, let's take the kids and drive out to this local beauty spot. And he was like, no, not on a Sunday. It'll be packed. No, look, well, let's just go anywhere. And we get there and there's absolutely no one around, just absolutely no one. And it's hard to get your head around the fact that this is a big country and you've got hardly any people living here and you've got loads and loads of space, haven't you?
Space. Yeah. So when my friends come from the States, they're like, are you kidding? I mean, they just look out the window. Are you serious? All this beachfront with no buildings?
Yeah.
So great.
All right, so our 4 ones that we've got so far are safety, beauty, nature, life balance, and what's number 5?
Yes, I would say, I might have to give you two more. I would say the integration of the indigenous culture here, the Maori culture, is just, that was really eye-opening for me. So as an American who has a similar thing where we had the Native Americans, which we've basically treated horribly, and they have the worst land in the US, and they're allowed to have some casinos, and they just live in the desert, basically. And I haven't known any different. And then when I come here and it's integrated into the schools, it's integrated into society. Now I know that they haven't always been perfect at that here, as there's always talk about that, but comparatively to the US, it was amazing. Like, they have a role in government, they have a role in, and like, I start my meetings with the karakia, I'm like, this is unusual.
Yeah.
And that was a really different thing, and I really like that. And New Zealand shows how it should be done. They're not perfect at it, but way better than the US anyway, and I think Australia too, but
that's a really good point. Yeah.
It was really cool. I was like, it was really noticeable, and really noticeable when people come, and and how much you can just get involved in those cultural things. And, because really, as I'm in situations where I'm talking a lot more with people and just learning about it, like, the Maori culture and some of their values are what makes New Zealand so great. Their values of accepting anybody coming in, or their values of how the way that they treat people is really why I love it here. Why I've been accepted here. This is like when I put out a message at, this, and then that's the response I get. We love that you're here. I just don't know that if you went to the US that you would get that. So it was really, it was just coming off of a plane into a place. I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything, and just how much people accepted you, and really was not just accepted you, but wanted to know about who you were, where you come from, really, truly, sincerely wanted to know about your culture and about your life. I had never experienced that before.
No.
And, even then moving back into the States, and, most people are like, I'm sure you're glad you're back from Australia. So, I wasn't in Australia, and they're like, no, I'm not glad I'm back.
No, exactly.
And all these assumptions that America is it. Why would you want to be anywhere else? And they have no interest in knowing the experience I just had.
No.
Zero.
No.
I was shocked at how my friends, family, everybody were like, oh, we're glad you're back. I'm sure you're glad you're back.
Yeah. Mind you, I don't know if that's just a world thing. We went around the world with the kids. We took them around the world for a year. And I can count on 3 fingers the people that said to me, so what was it like? Where did you go? What was, how was it? What was Vietnam like? What was India like? What was, I just think.
Really?
Yeah. I think people are caught up in their own lives, and I don't know. The kids were really shocked as well. They were like, well, how come no one wants to know what we did? It's just, So I just blab on about it on the podcast instead, and then they have to listen.
I know, me too. This is why I do it.
You will listen about our trip.
Just so you know, I'm here to tell you. If somebody wants to know, it's okay.
But it's funny what you should say, how you should say that about the integration. I'm only on the chamomile tea, by the way. I haven't got a glass of wine, but we had family come over from America just in February, and it was really funny because he's a lovely guy, but he came. Brian's cousin, he's beautiful. He's been on the podcast and he's lovely, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but he came and he looked around the garden and he looked over at the mountain and he said, "So, are there any natives here?" I just, are there any natives? I just imagined, these. I just thought, did you imagine that you were going to come over and there were going to be like grass skirts running around, just. It was quite.
I am
funny.
so glad that you shared that story, because I had the same. I can't even tell you. I moved here. I moved back, and then when I talked about going back here, I got you're going to go back and live in a hut? What? Do they have even churches over there? Okay. Are you serious? Like, you're like in my family, and like maybe you should Google it. Okay.
Oh, that's
like
funny.
have no idea. The same
No.
thing. Like, wow. Okay, so your cousin was American, and that's what he said. No surprise.
Right, go on. Number 5. I don't want
Okay,
to...
last one would be.
Oh, no, number 6. We've gone one over. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry. I just kind of
No.
put nature and food. We got to talk about food, girl.
Food.
We got to talk about food.
Yeah.
So food is, because food is difficult in the States. There's plenty of it. There's a lot of cheap food. There's a lot of expensive food, and it's complicated. And Americans overcomplicate it because they're just all into this and that, and organic, and then how organic, or the right kind of organic. And then we have so many food stores, and oh my goodness. And then nothing that's cheap is healthy, right? And so, so different coming here on a couple things. Number one would be the fact that you eat in season.
Yeah.
Like, right now, we're coming out of winter, and like tomatoes have been really expensive. And so maybe you don't eat as many. And like in America, you have everything you want all the time. And so that was an adjustment. And I really like that. I think that helps you enjoy foods.
Yep. I
Better
agree.
than not having it all the time.
Yeah.
So the food was a really big difference, in that everything is like essentially organic and so much better for you, and everything tasted so different.
Yes.
Like an apple.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? So good.
I agree. Yeah.
What have I been eating in the States? And the States are huge. And then I'm like, are apples really this small? I was shocked at how small how a real chicken was. I was like,
Hello,
how
little
small
canary.
they're supposed to be? Like, how am I going to feed my family with that? Yeah, just getting used to the sizes of food has been nothing but good. And then, like kind of what I talked about with work, tea time was a whole new idea. I didn't really drink tea. I would say people in the U.S. definitely drink tea, but it is not the same. They're like, here you travel and they'll have a jug everywhere and little milk and sugar, which you will not see in the U.S. if you're traveling.
Do you say
as
jug
you
in the
probably
US,
know.
by the way?
No, they don't even know what that is.
No. We say kettle in
You would say
England.
kettle. You
Yeah.
would say kettle, and it would be something that you put on your stove top. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
electric.
I was a bit confused when they said jug. I thought they were going to bring out a bunch of daffodils or something, because that's what isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, but have you got a jug for my flowers? And that's what a jug is. They're like, shall we put the jug on? I was like, pardon?
I know. And like, even it was really great. I had some good friends that were honest with me from the beginning and said, you do need to offer us tea when we come in. Oh, I do. Okay. I don't have any, but I'll get that. And so, so that was a big cultural adjustment, the morning tea and the afternoon tea. And even for my kids, for it to be called, and they're like, we don't want tea. Why would we want tea? And and then it was my son, who was probably 9 at the time, says to me one night at dinner and says, it seems like we're taking breaks to eat all the time here, but people are a lot skinnier here than in the U.S.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Because just the quantity and you're not feeling your produce and your meat with all these GMOs and hormones, and just everything tastes different.
Yeah.
The food is so much better here.
Yeah, I agree. And so when you say about the America being all vegan and vegetarian, like all those different, do you find that, so if you were a vegan and coming to New Zealand, do you find that they cater to that, or what do you think?
Good. Great question. No, I think there's tons and tons of vegetarian and vegan options here. I don't know, maybe if it's just because I'm in Wellington, but pretty much every cafe I go to, there's options. And to me, it's everywhere. About the same as, probably even more than in Wisconsin in particular, but probably not more than like the east or west coast, but of the U.S.
Yeah, I think coming from the UK, that I think one of the biggest things to me was I wasn't expecting to come, and the cafes would be so they're really good cafes, aren't they? I mean, if you're into coffee and going for coffee and cake and sandwiches and whatever, they're fantastic. They're absolutely brilliant. So
girl, don't even get me started with the coffee.
Yeah.
The coffee is like I've never had before. And it's really, that is probably the hardest thing about visiting the States. Because your only coffee that's espresso is Starbucks. There's some smaller ones, but that's generally it. And they burn their beans. It's not good. And, you know, and then otherwise you have drip coffee, which is like horrible. I don't know. It's so bad.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I try to just drink it. I'm just here for a couple weeks and I will just drink it.
You Kiwi coffee snob.
I know. I know. My kid, you know, I sneak out of the house sometimes in the morning and go get a coffee, and then my dad catches me and is like, "Oh, my coffee's not good enough for you." Oh. And I'm like, "Oh gosh." No, it's fine. You know, they do have really good creamers in the U.S. because the coffee's so bad. You got to cover it up. So, so the coffee is just, and I love how there's cafes everywhere in New Zealand, like in the middle of nowhere. You're driving and there's a cafe.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. Isn't it?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. I have embraced it, girl.
Yeah,
I love the coffee here.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah, me too. I just need to teach them a little bit how to do tea because they haven't got the tea quite right in New Zealand. You know, they drink a lot of it, but they need to start. They're getting better. You know, they're bringing in loads of tea leaves now and everything, and it's getting a bit better. But yeah, when we first came over here, they would literally just put a cup of hot water and a tea bag on the side, and it was like, no, that's not how you make a cup of tea. Get those daffodils out.
I want to learn
jug.
how you make tea.
Well, just like with proper tea leaves and, you know.
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah, just tea leaves. Yeah. And I like my tea with quite weak with lemon and, you know, I'm British. But no, I totally agree with the cafe culture. Right, listen, we have gone way over time, and I have absolutely loved talking to you about it's just so nice to speak to an American that's living in New Zealand. I'll be honest with you, in Taranaki certainly where I live, I think I know about 2 Americans and that's it. You know, there's a lot of Brits here. There's lots of people from Britain, South Africa, France, but hardly any Americans, which is really, really interesting. So have you got a lot of Americans in Wellington? Is that where they all are? Is that where you're all hiding? No?
I don't really. I know very, very few in this country. Like I said, I think it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's really hard to get into this country. It's not like the UK. I mean, it's more of an agreement with, you know, New Zealand and whatever. But the second reason, I think, is because, you know, you're fed the Kool-Aid in the US. This is the greatest place on earth. Why would you go anywhere else? People aren't. People just aren't considering coming. And you know, 50% of Americans have passports? Like, they just don't envision themselves living anywhere else, or that anywhere else, you know, isn't just a bunch of huts with grass skirts.
And natives.
The natives.
With their daffodils in their jugs.
Yes, because that was the biggest shock to me. Like, I thought, there's no way I'm not coming back to the U.S., because of course I would come back to the U.S., but like to see a country and function so well and so logically and so kindly was eye-opening for me.
Yeah. Oh, New Zealand, we do love you. We do love you, New Zealand.
Thank
Britain
you for
the
letting
Yank
us in.
loves you. Yes, thank you for letting us in. Okay, listen, I found you because of your fabulous YouTube. I know you're a big TikTok star, but I found you through YouTube, and you do the most amazing videos. Everything you need to know about New Zealand is on your channel, and I take my hat off to you. Like I said to you yesterday, I think you're amazing, Tara. You tell it how it is, and I think people are going to love your channel. So could you please just tell people how to find you and where you are?
Sure. That is really kind. I've just started recently going on social media and YouTube, and you can find me. I'm making it easy for you, Kiwi Americans. You can find me on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, and Facebook, all under that name. And if you're thinking about moving to New Zealand or just overseas with your family, I am happy to help talk you through it, talk about what you need to know, because I've, done it 3 times over now.
You've been there and done that. Yeah, you're an expert.
And I'm happy to help. I know all this stuff. Let me help you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Tara, thank you so much. Thank you for being a guest, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Liz.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Listen up, all you people who love New Zealand and dream of moving here or even are planning to move here. 11 years ago, when we decided to emigrate to New Zealand, we'd put our papers in and everything. And then, honestly, I spent months just scouring whatever I could and devouring any information on New Zealand that I could find. I was reading all the books, I was going on any websites I could find. And, I was even listening to Kiwi radio just so we could get a feel of what it was like over here. And I vowed when we got over here, I'd make something for someone that just showed them what real life was really like in New Zealand. And that's what I've done for you. You are going to absolutely love this. I've created a free 5-day video guide all about moving to and living in New Zealand. Now, this guide is not your tourist guide, pretty picture-y hobbits things about New Zealand. This is nitty-gritty, what it's like to live in New Zealand, because do you know what? It's too far away. You can't come and see it for yourself. It's, you're taking a big risk. Maybe you've only been here once or twice. You want to know what it's like to live in New Zealand. And this video series is going to show you that. And best of all, it is absolutely free. Okay, you're going to love it. This is where you have to go. You can go to www.itsadrama.com/ILoveNZ. I'm going to say that again. It's www.itsadrama, so itsadrama.com/ILove, and then the 2 letters NZ. Go over there, put your email in, and I will send you 5 days of free, real life, what it's like to live in New Zealand. And I just know I'm so excited about it. You are going to love it. Let me know what you think. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the podcast. We have loved having you here.
If you guys could subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review.
Oh yeah, that would be nice.
That would be absolutely amazing. And make sure to share the podcast with your friends.
And if you'd like to hop over to the blog, find one of the little boxes that ask you to drop your email. I will send you a newsletter every week letting you know when we've released our new podcast. That will go straight into your inbox. So it's www.itsadrama.com.
All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next week for another podcast.
Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.